Oh, okay.
All right, Alafia, Mandala, Bibi Fahudie is your favorite warrior, Black Panther in your building. Once again with Babo Gundi Ron. This is the first broadcast from the techno-organic jungle that I call my office. Any Black Panther comic fans in the house know why I call it that. Today, we're going to talk about a pretty, I don't want to say sensitive subject, but it's something to where it may become riddled with controversy the farther it gets. We're going to talk about how to get rid of your Ebo, which means which is a general term for sacrifice in the tradition of Isheshe and the other Orisha practices around the world throughout the diaspora. So first things first, how you doing today, Mr. Ogundiran?
Other than the technical difficulties and it being a little dark in here, I'm doing just fine.
Hey, it's a little dark over here too. So definitely, man. We had a little bit of difficulties, but we got that going. We are broadcasting live from my Facebook page, from my YouTube channel, Black Panther, and the Mossy Warrior Clan channel. So if you can send this link to multiple ways. If you know somebody that this topic, affects or want to know more about it. Yes, Niger Valley Civilization. Salute to you, brother. We are on. Thank you for sharing the show. Everybody like, share, and subscribe for me, if you will. Global Green Book blessings. I appreciate that. My fellow Black Panther, T'Challa Bangura, is in the building. Appreciate that, brother. And Kisu Ishoke or Insoke. Bogbodara Imboka. So that's a little Gambia Yoruba mix there. I know he's going to probably ask me later, what the hell is Imboka?
That's exactly like I meant to ask you. What?
The little Yoruba Gambia,
That's something like fungi lafia.
Exactly. Exactly. Hey, let me just tell people. I know most of us grew up with the fungi lafia ashe. That is not solely a Yoruba song. I need you to look up them words. It's all over the place. I'll just say it like that. But Africans will do that. You're talking to them in one language, they switch to you midway, and they won't tell you that they switched. So, we in true African fashion here. So let's get to the business at hand. How to get rid of your sacrifice or your Ebo. First, let's start with what is an Ebo?
Okay, and Ebo is a generic term for sacrifice, to put it simply. It is used very broadly, and sometimes can be confusing because people generally use the word Ebo for everything we do. Whether it's Riru, whether it's Ebo, it's all Ebo. So the general word is meaning for sacrifice.
All right, so it's basically an all-encompassing term meaning sacrifice. Is that right?
Right. Yes. Okay. And it's used very loosely in areas. So it does not really give a detailed account to what kind of sacrifice that you're doing or who you're giving the sacrifice to. So it is a general kind of word, just used for sacrifice.
Understood. So you mentioned another term in there, Ebo. Can you describe for the people what is Ebo?
Ebo is an offering that is offered to any divinity or entity, but it has to be offered to that specific entity or entity.
Okay,
so we can consider like worship of a divinity When we do the Ebo, the technical term would be Ebo for it.
Mm.
Things being
Okay.
offered to the divinity. And there's other terms as well. I believe Akanbo is another one that could be used, but Ebo is very specific to the offering to a divinity per se.
Okay. So with the Ebo and the Ebo, can you describe their relationship as in as best layman terms as you can to the process that we call Riru?
Okay, so when you get a divination,
Mhm.
and of course you get your information and all those elements that are part of that sacrifice, we can consider that Ebo. It's an like all-encompassing term. But when we get down to the actual rituals of what we are doing, it has to be broken down because we have the part which is Riru, which is done for either the Erindilogun or Ifa. Doesn't matter. Both of them have Riru. Um, and this takes the form of multiple prayers on top of prayers on top of prayers on top of prayers and more prayers on top of prayers on top of prayers. And at the very end of it, we may add like bits of corn, sometimes bits of kola nut, depending on what the sacrifice has asked for and the directions of how it's supposed to, what's supposed to go in it, and where that is supposed to be left. Because it's typically within a calabash. Sometimes it's on a banana leaf or just a leaf. And one of the main ingredients that you will see is eka. They call pap, which is like kind of a cornstarch gelatin kind of thing. It's white in color. And that's the base of the riru as far as the offering. And then we keep adding small stuff inside of that, whether it be rat, fish, kola nut, or rogbo, just depending on what is said.
Mhm.
So when it comes to the animals, let me back up. So when we put all that ingredients in, we're going to ask where that is to be left. But there's no animal there.
Hmm.
If we do have animals, bits of the animal or certain aspects like some feathers from different locations, will be put in the ebol to symbolize that a bird is going to be sacrificed as part of the ebol, but it's not part of that actual process.
Hmm.
That process of sacrificing the bird is actually the ebol, which actually goes to the orisha or the particular orisha that it was meant to go for, that the divination actually prescribed. So within the whole divination process, when you get an ebo, it's actually done in two parts most of the time. Sometimes you just do riru if you don't have any animals.
Hmm.
So, but if there's animals involved, most of the time the general rule is it's going to be broken down to the riru, and then we got the ebo.
Okay, so we have a process that comes out of divination in which appeasement is involved and the Riru is not involving the animals, but the Ebo is involving the animals.
Yes, most of the time. Like in the riru, we will like the animals are present, but when the slaughtering does not take place there. Most of the time, there are certain situations where the verse will dictate what is to be done. I'm just saying in a general reference, the animals are done after the riru is done, after that quote unquote ebo has been placed to whatever location it's supposed to go into. Then we come back and then we do the animal sacrifices.
Okay. So describe the current problem, or if you want me to, I can. But what's the current problem with the animals and the placement of them in various cities, in various places, and what's the current apparatus? What's going on?
Well, from what I understand, and for the past few months, maybe like 6 months, I've heard a lot of complaints coming out of like the general Florida, Atlanta, and other cities, even in New York, that people are discarding animals everywhere.
Mm.
Um, we'll talk about more of that in a moment, but the one of the main issues is an environmental issue. If you're going to, so this will really depend on tradition. But if you're going to leave an animal out, and if you're going to, it's particularly within the Rigadiocha system that we typically, or they would typically leave the animal somewhere, but they shouldn't be really put in a plastic bag and discarded. That doesn't really make any sense. I can understand someone putting in a brown paper bag, but the paper bag really isn't necessary either.
Mm.
And it's more of like a lot of these national parks or a lot of these areas that people go to hike in are now being littered with carcasses everywhere. And this can be a problem depending on where you're at because it will also attract other animals. That's
And
food laying off. Yep, gotta eat. And that's free food. So you also see a lot of heightened animal activity also when that occurs. Um, so that's the main really problem. We have these animals laying everywhere, even on street corners. And my fear is eventually, they're going to start cracking down because honestly, no one wants to be walking in the middle of roads and see a bunch of carcasses everywhere, or walking down the street, or driving by a crossroad and see, you know, a dead chicken or a goat there. It's going to eventually be a problem if it hasn't already got there. I've had talks with some people that they're even worried, that they're going to really start cracking down because of this problem. Even you shared a post with me about a graveyard that said, no animal droppings.
Yeah,
In Atlanta.
there's a pretty popular meme. I don't know where the cemetery is, but they had a sign that said no voodoo, no hoodoo, no Santeria, no nothing. And what's funny about the meme is there's a dead bird next to the sign.
Right underneath the sign.
So someone did not heed the warnings of the sign. So that's the
Right.
current problem, right? Animals are
Mhm.
being discarded all over the place. I live next to a Cascade Nature Reserve in Atlanta, Georgia, and it's become basically an Ebo dump. People are just leaving, you know, that's just what they do, and
Right.
it's my concern as well as yours that after some time the authorities will be, involved, and that's not good for any practitioner.
No.
So that's one of the reasons why we wanted to bring this sort of impromptu information to you. So that's the current problem. That's some of the effects that can happen. The legal aspects, the environmental aspects, especially with the plastic bags and that not being biodegradable to nature. Because if you're an Orisha practitioner, nature should be very important to you. But what is the Shay narrative of what we're doing here? Is there how would they dispose of the animals?
Well, if we're going to speak about Yoruba culture or any African culture, or I guess any underdeveloped country, no one wastes anything. That's food, first of all,
Mm.
first and foremost. So what typically will happen is after we slaughter the bird during the Ebo process, excuse me, the Ebo process, um, those animals, whether a bird, four-legged, they will be butchered, and certain parts of that animal will be removed, such as like the neck, maybe some breast meat, depending on tradition. And these parts will be cooked. That means the bird is going to be stripped of all its feathers. It's going to be, butchered, cut open. Certain things are going to be taken out, and we're going to cook it. Now, whether we cook the whole bird or not really depends on the practitioner. But there's going to be certain elements of that bird that need to be removed. Um, In the Cuban system, it's called removing the ache. The terminology in Isheshe is yanle. The yanle can kind of be a little deceiving because that word could also be used for something else, as what we actually offer to the Orisha as food is sometimes considered yanle. But the process is basically, after the head has been taken, we offer the bird. We end up plucking the bird, cutting it open, removing what we need to remove out of it, cooking those parts, and then we return those parts to the Orisha. And there's certain prayers that go along with each one of those parts to basically finish off your sacrifice. So the bird afterwards can either be cooked, and eaten. If you don't want to do that, you could throw it away. It's not going to be so much of a problem because you're throwing poultry away. It's not like you're going to be throwing a whole bird. A lot of states have laws against, putting animals and everything in the garbage. But if you've plucked it and it looks like it's been cooked and it's poultry, it's been cut open, stuff removed, there's probably not going to be any need for that. You could also bury the bird. There's nothing wrong with that either. Now, this should be something that is done all the time, but truthfully, sometimes in this country, due to the either lack of experience or a lot of times not having the help, because if you're by yourself and you got 4 or 5 birds, that's a lot of work for one person to be trying to do. And then, a lot of people think, you do the reading, you do the riru, you do the Ebo, and you're done. No, we still got to cook. We still got to come back and offer. So there's a longer process there. It's just not we slaughter, we get rid of the bird, and that's it. So some of the options, at least in Isheshe, is either you can, after the bird is slaughtered, you removed everything. You can either cook the bird to eat. You could butcher, take the parts and save the bird for cooking it at another time, or you can bury the bird, or you can simply just throw it away if that's what you wish to do. But in Nigeria, they don't throw, among the Yorubas, they don't throw that bird away. They eat it. In most cases, very few cases where they won't eat the bird, but it's particularly the person that the offering is being given to that won't eat the bird, but not the rest of the people. But that's even some rare occasions.
Interesting. Um, so are there any instances from the Isheshe narrative where they would leave the animals out in nature?
Yes, but these come under like very particular set of rules or orders or instructions from the oracle itself. It's not something you just do to do. So there are cases of where we might leave stuff for the there might be a case where if you're trying to befriend Eshu, there might be some type of ritual where the carcass itself is left in a particular place, but the chest cavity will be open and different stuff will be in it. So it is not always the case, but these are something that are very specific to what is asked of you. Generally, we don't do it. As a general rule, we normally, slaughter the birds unless instructed otherwise for some other type of special work. But generally, it's we slaughter them.
Okay. So we went over burying, cooking the bird, or just putting it in your trash after things are removed. Is there anywhere else we can leave these these animals once they've been or slaughtered or something like that?
Typically in Isheshe, you won't be leaving animals on street corners. You don't ask to if it goes here because the bird is going to be slaughtered, and if not eaten, this part's going to be taken out. So this generally does not occur in Isheshe. Is the first thing. And when we ask where to leave something at, it has nothing to do with the bird. That actually has to do with the riru of where we actually leave that ebo, which is, the riru is attached to the orientation of the verse. So the majority of the prayers are going to be based off the orientation of the verse, whether it comes in ire, whether it comes in eb, or what type of ire, or what type of eb. And this is kind of like a message that is sent. And all Riru is eventually given to Eshu.
Mhm.
So this is actually what we typically leave places where we ask if it might be left at the base of Eshu, or left in the backyard, or left at the fork in the road, or left at the refuge hump. These are questions that are typically asked during the Riru process. This does not necessarily happen generally during the Ebo process.
So it seems like the solution to the problem that's growing amongst practitioners would be to either bury the bird after
Mhm.
you're done, cook the bird, um, or discard it in the trash. After you've removed things, and please also, I think you touched on it earlier, look up your your laws for your state, your
Mhm.
municipalities, for discarding things like chickens or roosters, or goats, or whatever you have to use. Look up, be informed, be empowered, look these things up. And so we don't want a situation, because one thing I learned years ago, when it comes to groups of people that do similar practices, when they blame somebody, they're not going to be individualistic about it. They're not going to say, well, Brian got caught putting a goat
Yeah.
out at a crossroads. They're going to say, them damn EFA people put
Mhm.
them goats out in the crossroads, and it stinks. And I had to call animal control because they released some hen in my yard. It's going to be like that. So,
Right.
we're not saying we're not doing this show to offend anyone, or to point fingers. We just want to make people aware that there are other options, and these options should be strongly considered given the current climate that we live in, and getting that it's about to be we foresee it being a problem. I've spoke to many people, as you have, and people are starting to complain. You're walking with your daughter in a nice nature reserve, and she sees a decapitated goat head. This is people
Right.
are going to complain.
Right.
That's just what
Um,
it is. And
yeah.
Earth is not a trash place for discarded animals.
Right. And even sometimes, speaking about the Rigadiocha, because they do theirs a little differently.
Mhm.
They do not always cook the bird, from my understanding. During major rituals, like I guess if they're giving out an Orisha, or if they're doing an initiation, they will typically cook the birds. So you won't have that process of them leaving the bird somewhere. It's typically within the Regal de Ocho people, within their tradition of where they, after they slaughter the bird, they might blow some smoke on it, maybe some gin, leave a couple of pennies, and then cast where to leave that particular bird at.
Mhm.
For these people that were within their tradition, I would say just take a little more extra time to, when you do place some of this stuff. Like if you're going to place it in the woods or like in a nature reserve, don't place it in a sense where everyone can see it. You might want to put it a little bit behind the bush, or sometimes I it might be a little out of their tradition, but if they go to the nature reserve, and they want to drop something off, bury it. You know, I know some of the times they're not going to get away, because sometimes when they leave them on street corners, there's not really a way to really do that without, that's just what it's going to be. But like I said, in Isheshe, this typically does not happen. But for other traditions where this process has kind of been lost and molded in a different way due to time spent and their own tradition, there are some traditions that will leave these animals in certain places and cast where to leave them. I'm just saying, for those people, just be careful about what you do, and try not to, because it affects all of us, no matter what tradition we're in. you know um and at some point it can affect us real badly. Like some of the laws here in Virginia, They even stopped allowing some of the farmers that would typically, because they're allowed to raise animals, to actually slaughter for people. Like the person that I normally get to go for my birds, he does with a lot of Islamic and Jewish people when they do their slaughtering. So they'll come to him and they'll slaughter their stuff on his land. But lately, the authorities have stopped that.
Mm.
So, in a lot of different places, depending on whether you're in a residential area, whether that residential area has been farmed for farm use, the laws may, even when keeping birds sometimes, you can get in trouble even if you're not even going to slaughter them. Just holding them might actually get you in trouble, depending on, your laws in your particular area. So I just, take a little bit of caution and realize that, it's just not you trying to perform your work, because if we keep doing this, it's already an issue. It's only a matter of time if we don't stop correcting this until they actually start retaliating in some type of way, start making laws or start making it more difficult. And personally, being in these traditions are already difficult as it is, being, the minority out of all these other people that just look at you like, no offense, but most Christians, Muslims will all gang together to call us heathens. They'll forget all about what they believe against each other just to have a common enemy. I've seen it many a time.
Yeah.
So, just be careful. If you can put it away where it's not seen, that's good to do. For those who practice isheshe, try to cook your birds, and that also requires extra training too, because then you got to know how to slaughter, then you got to know how to open the bird, what part goes
Yeah,
to which.
all of it.
Right. But that's a
This
part of
sounds
it,
like to me that, we know that the Orisha practice in diaspora was highly adaptive at one time, and pulled from different influences at different time periods and adapted to different conditions. And it sounds like we need to do that again, and that our brothers on the continent, our brothers and sisters on the continent, can help us with that problem. But we have to seek out that information and train on that.
Yes, and it's hard because a lot of people don't want to do it. I mean, me and you earlier talked about farming, and how that we need farmers, but no one wants to farm.
Everybody agrees we need farmers. Nobody
but no one wants to farm. Just like I've seen when goats are getting slaughtered, but the moment it comes to come to butcher them, everyone's gone. Everyone disappears. So it takes a certain stomach, to do some of this stuff. But that's another thing. If you're gonna get into this tradition, there are levels to it, but you got to remember there's a lot of stuff that we do that you may not want to do.
I always tell ladies, if you're looking for a manly man, get somebody in a African tradition. They're not squeamish at all. if you cut the head off a rooster and not flinch, hey, that brother gonna protect you. That brother gonna, hey, hardcore now. Hey, he ain't squeamish. A little blood don't make him faint, And for sisters that's dating a dude, take him to a Ebo and see his reaction. You might find out of your own life.
I've seen men that have problems handle just the blood. They don't even have to be doing just the bloodletting. It's hard. And then when a goat or a four-legged animal, it's even worse, because then it gets really messy. So yeah, it takes a certain amount of heart and a certain about character to be able to do some of these things.
Man. Let's see what that heart about bringing you to the elbow. Let's see what that ticker like,
And
but
hence,
we got a question
why
in the chat. Sean, I'm gonna fight you for this. Can you be a practitioner and not do Ebo?
Okay, I want to clarify. The answer to his question is no. But what do you mean by Ebo? If he's referring to the slaughtering of an animal, then no. because ebo can also be koa nuts. It could be gin. It can be other food items. We don't always, it's not as though. Unfortunately, some of the way it is viewed, it tends to be looks like a little bloodthirsty, like we're always sacrificing. But this isn't true, especially in Isheshe. We can do a lot with just normal food, prayers, koa nut, a little bit of liquor. Every once in a while, we might have to cook some roasted yam, some okuru. It just really depends. But the idea of sacrifice or ebo in general, no, you can't get around that. Because every time you actually go to pray and on the asedes, you're actually providing sacrifice. Though that sacrifice is koa nuts and gin or koa nuts and liquor, it's still a sacrifice.
And I would like to add, someone's going to be mad at this, but whatever. Mm-hmm. There are no vegan shrines in Isheshe.
Yeah, I'm not gonna get too much in that topic, but yeah, that's just what. Yeah.
I was talking to you. It don't exist.
Yeah,
you can't conform Orisha practices to your lifestyles, because I'm gonna be the first person to tell you they don't care.
Right. It's
they don't care. You the one went and sought them out. Now you gonna tell them how you want to worship them. That's not how it works.
The offering of animal sacrifice is something that is inherent to that culture. It's just what it is. And then on top of that, people eat meat anywhere there. So,
yep.
Yeah. And if anyone ever knows, and most time has lived in any, forgive me for, I don't know what the political correct term is anymore, but anywhere like in a third world country or an undeveloped country, mm-hmm. A lot of times the reason why you don't see them eat meat a lot is because they can't afford it. Mm-hmm. It's not that they don't eat it. So, meat is expensive.
And the diet is different as well. They've got mm-hmm. They just got different ideas of a diet than what we have. They don't eat meat for every freaking meal, but
right.
They do eat it.
Right. It's just what it is,
It is what it is.
No one is going to turn down meat.
No.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
The first time I ever had ram, I was in Africa. Nobody ever gave me ram.
Now, you don't necessarily have to eat the food, though it's kind of customary in some situations, but that's probably the best way you can get around that. But slaughtering is going to be a part at least every year if you have an orisha, or some type of orisha object to any one of the particular divinities. Every year there's an annual sacrifice that is done for rejuvenation and refortification of that particular divinity. So it's going to happen.
And we're not the only people that do this. Muslims do this at Mecca. Right. Yom Kippur in Judaism. If you go back far enough, Christians were doing this as well. You go to Kemet, he was doing kings would slaughter bulls for annual festivals as well. This is not nothing, specific to us, but it only seems like African people take the the brunt of it and get left holding the bag, when all these other traditions, all these religions, all these practices global wide engage in this as well. So, right. People, they got their nose up, or, you barbarians and whatever. Stop it. Okay. Stop it. Almost every tradition in every religion has this form in one way or the other. And African people are going to stop being demonized for it.
Right. The funny thing is, when you see white farmers doing this, no one says a word about it.
Nothing.
Nothing.
Only women.
And I don't know if you've ever had I don't know if anyone's ever had the experience to go in a slaughterhouse. So the moment someone calls me cruel for doing something, I know they've never been to. I've been to a slaughterhouse, unfortunately. It is not a pretty sight. Matter of fact, it turned my stomach.
It will, and I tell people all the time, don't give me the morality speeches, and you're gonna go to Chick-fil-A when we leave here. Don't stop it. Because just because you wasn't involved, you are just as complicit as anybody else. When you get that spicy deluxe spicy chicken sandwich, you know what had to happen for that
Well,
chicken to get plate.
look, we have Thanksgiving come up. Imagine all the people are going to be turkeys.
Gonna be tearing it up, and they're gonna turn their nose up at you when you talk about, well, I gotta go cut the head off a rooster lately.
How you think your turkey got there?
Exactly. And it just
So,
comes down to people don't want to be involved because they
right.
feel like they're not a part of the process. Supply and demand says you just as much a part of the process as anybody else. So, I just wanted to make that clear. We need to stop demonizing African people for something that is innate in religious and in spiritual practices globally.
And to eat.
Yes.
Sometimes we don't got to worry about spiritual and religious practice. We do it to eat.
Yeah, just to eat. It don't even have to do nothing with deities. Just good
Right.
old practical nourishment.
Right.
You know. So, do
Yeah.
we have any more questions from the chat? We've been on about 35 minutes. If we don't have any more questions from the chat, probably going to wrap this up. Don't want this video to be too long. I don't think we have any. I'm going to go in once. Going twice. I don't have a gavel, but so thank you all for watching this video. Like, share, subscribe. Leave us some comments. We do read them. And always support the Mossy Warrior Clan and all the other core families, man. Right now, we're getting ready to release Killmonger's Corner Volume 2. It's going to be coming out on Black Friday, which is the 27th. So pick that up. The first ever Conscious Community Pan-African Journal, Volume 2. We got Stickman from Dead Prayers in there. We got B. Dr. God interview in there. We got scholars all day, every day. We got poetry. We got artwork. And I appreciate the support. We got Brother Sean's book. I got my bookshelf right here. I might have to pull it out. Where are my books at? We got Brother Sean's book. We got Brother Kofi's book. We can start with this right here. If y'all ain't picked it up, Spears of the Mossy, Volume 1. I wrote the foreword, so that's why you should buy it. Volume 2, Spears the Pen. And Volume 3 is going to be coming out real soon as well. So y'all wait on that one. We got a lot of books. I don't have time to get through all of them, but I'm going to get through as many as I can. We got Brother Sean's One Night Before Bed children's book. We got Brother Kofi's book right here. Kalawa's Trip to the Motherland. We got that. The first Killmonger's Corner is on Amazon. Pick that up as well. We got so many books, I don't have time to go through all of them, man. But
before we end up closing, I wanted to say something. To all Orisha practitioners, regardless of what tradition you're in, the earth is important to us all.
Nileo.
So, and the things that we have to do and the other people we have to depend on to do a lot of what we do, I'm just saying, look at the bigger picture. If we're going to do these things and leave these sacrifices places, let's try to do the best we can so we don't ruin the environment. And we try to keep things as clean and as sanitary as possible. I know it's not always the case, but we can at least try to do better than what we have been doing. Because what's been going on lately is ridiculous. There's no sense that we should be going into woods and finding a bird in a plastic bag or on a street corner with a bird on a plastic bag. So just take heed. There's several ways we can do this. And like I said, it's for the benefit of us all, regardless of what tradition you are in.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I just showed Brother Kofi's book, As We Learn. As I Learn, We All Learn. And Brother Sean's book, From Cocaine to Consciousness. We can't even show all of them, but I'm gonna show one of Amin Ma'atra's book. This is The Roman Illusion, Volume 3, Islam Exposed. Pick this up by Brother Amin Ma'atra. He's got about 6 books. So when you type his name in, all of his publications are going to come up. And you can cop that as well. We got plenty of study material for y'all. So, last question before we close out. Brother Kisu Isoke says, what can be used instead of a goat when it is required for Ebo? It's a good question.
Yeah, there's also a tricky question. All right. I don't feel comfortable answering this question directly because this also has to do with training. Particularly, well, it also depends if it's coming from like a divination and telling you for a goat, or whether you're just offering a goat to a divinity for whatever reason. The two are different. When it is prescribed by an oracle, there's certain rules and regulations that we have to follow, certain questions that we have to ask. But it is a good question because sometimes if it asks for a goat and we don't have a goat, then obviously the goat is to be substituted out in some way for something. But I do not want to go into the process of how that is done. Like I said, that is for training and for people that do divination, whether it's the Eredi Logun or Ifa, whether it's the Opele or the Ikin. But typically, if it's just something you're doing on your own and you want to offer a 4-legged animal and you cannot offer it, it really depends on what the 4-legged animal is and what it represents. Because different animals represent different things. For instance, I'll give you like for a pigeon. A pigeon is normally used to prevent death or for prosperity or to bring prosperity back into your home. So different animals have different usage. Like a rooster is normally done to, people will say, to fight against something, or it's just against something, whether it's against poverty, whether it's against someone fighting you, whether it's against sickness. Roosters are typically used for against something. So different animals have different things that are associated with them.
All right. That was a great question. Great answer. We're going to wrap this thing up. Thank you all for tuning in. Stay tuned. We're going to have more presentations, more publications, more work. A lot of people make a lot of excuses. We just keep producing. Spears are flying. Pseudos is always crying. I appreciate you all for giving us your time. We out.
I should.